What's that? I don't know if it's actually that much. The last statistic I heard was, no, $850 billion was just one of the stimulus packages. To date, now this is, it's just going out of control. It seems like every single day there's more being spent. The last statistic that I heard was somewhere around 11 to 12 trillion dollars has been printed on our printing presses to just prop up the banks. Now, I don't know about you, but where do we get that money from? Where's the money coming from? Supposedly, the taxpayers have it. How many of you have $12 trillion in your back pocket? And I hope that if you do, you're not carrying it around down the street. Because, friends, the money is not there. American people do not have the money. Just be honest. How much, you may not want to raise your hand, but just be honest. How many of us have debts? How many of us? Well, some of you are bold enough to raise your hand. You don't have to raise your hand, so don't be required. Most of us have debts, don't we? Whether credit card, home loans, cars, school debt, our children are in school. So we have debt. So where did the people of America have an extra spare $12 trillion to bail out the government? It is not there, friends. It is not there, and as a result, it will cause a crash in the economy. Here it is. Here's the Dow going down. By the way, this was last year, September, October, November, December, all the way to January. The Dow actually was crashing farther and faster than at any time in history, even than the Great Depression. Now, it's gone back up, hasn't it? We used to be about 14,000, went down to about 6,000, now it's back up to about 9-something, isn't it? So we say, well, we must be out of the woods. No, we're not. I'll show you why. Let's continue on. Suicides, people shooting each other, killing themselves because of the financial crisis. And here we have, even back in February 16th, even the European Global Anticipation Bulletin was predicting that by September 2008 in the United States, this new tipping point would translate into a collapse of the real economy. People around the world knew that America was in trouble. You didn't know because you've been watching too much news. And the news, friends, the corporate media is owned and controlled by the powers that be. You don't believe me, friends? Then why do they all say the same thing and they don't tell you the truth? Let's continue on. Oh, and here we have the man who helped it all. Of course, we have to give him credit because he was the first one to do the bailouts. And so President Bush steps in, and by the way, this is the same man who said that we had a fundamentally healthy economy. And then, of course, about a week later, he has a presidential news conference and says that we're in serious trouble, we're on the verge of a depression, give me your money or else. Federal Reserve to buy up short-term commercial debt. Voila! And as a result, the stock market shoots back up 400 points. Amazing. The crisis is now over. Well, friends, no, it's not. Let's continue. Let's look at what the experts are saying. Here's what the Global European Anticipation Bulletin is saying. They're saying that this year, 2009, we're going to be having some type of default on the public debt. According to our team, the period that will then begin, 2009, should be conducive to the setting up of a new dollar, some type of new currency, to remedy the problem of default and of induced massive capital drain from the U.S. Friends, America is going down. Here we have Gerald Celente, Fox News, all over, is saying this. Even the British Ministry of Defense is reporting that the middle class could become a revolutionary class. Here you have people predicting this, that there will be a revolution in this country. He said it's not going to come yet, but it's going to come down the line, and we're going to see a third party, and this was the catalyst for the revolution, the takeover of Washington, D.C. in broad daylight by Wall Street in this bloodless coup. The first thing to do is to organize with tax revolts. Anybody been hearing about tax revolts happening lately? Tea parties all over the United States of America? Friends, it's beginning. It's happening. That's going to be the big one because people can't afford to pay more school tax, property tax, any kind of tax. You're going to start seeing these kinds of protests start to develop. It's going to be very bleak, very sad. And there is going to be a lot of homeless, the likes of which we have never seen before. Now, did you know that we have a new homeless class in America today? It's called the middle class. People that cannot afford their mortgages, they're staying in hotels. Parents are moving back in with their children. People are moving into the same home so that they can somehow afford their rent or their mortgage. Well, notice what this man predicts. He said, we're going into the worst depression that any living person has ever seen. It's going to be worse than the Great Depression of 1929. You say, oh, this guy's a fanatic. Well, look at his reasoning. In 1929, not many people owned homes, so they weren't carrying that heavy mortgage load. The people who did have homes did not have something called home equity loans, which is more money owed on top of the other money. How many of you know about that, second mortgages? They used to have something else back then called a second mortgage. If you had one, you were a loser. Number two, back in 1929, people didn't have things called credit cards. Number three, back in 1929, the U.S. didn't have $14 trillion worth of debt. Now, I have an issue with that figure. The actual real figure is right around $54 trillion when you factor in Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. We still had a manufacturing base in the U.S., so when World War II broke out, the economy improved afterwards. We still produced more than any other country in the world, but now the U.S. offshores their manufacturing base. Isn't that true, friends? The U.S. has very little manufacturing today. Matter of fact, the number one manufacturing base in America is the auto industry, which is going down the tubes as well. Back in the Great Depression, the U.S. government was not $14 trillion in debt. They had a trade surplus, not a trade deficit. Did you know that the U.S. has the world's largest trade deficit? We are the world's largest debtor. The world's largest debtor. So you say, why do countries keep on bailing us out? Did you know that other countries are bailing out America? By buying our treasury bonds. Now you say, why are they doing that? Because they're scared. Because if America goes down, then the whole world goes down. And so people are stuck. They have their backs to the wall. Other countries don't know what to do. We are in a crisis of unforeseen proportions. We also weren't fighting two wars back then. We've already sapped $2 trillion from the American Treasury. And right now, just on the Iraq war alone, we're spending $2 billion a day. $2 billion every day just in the Iraq war. And now Afghanistan, we've been in Afghanistan for the last 8 years, and now we're sending 60,000 more troops in there. Continue on. Well, I don't have time to go through all this. I just want to show you with you how even Nirdo Rabini, chief economist of New York University, is warning that there will be riots. People in the government should be careful. Here, the U.S. military. This is from Newsmax, Newsmax.com. The U.S. Army War College is discussing the use of American troops to quell civil unrest brought about by a worsening economic crisis. The American government is preparing for martial law and civil war. Now, friends, I told you that tonight you may be upset. I'm going to share with you a lot of information that may be shocking to you, so I'm going to move on. There's a lot more to share. I'm going to tell you something, friends, that the United States government right now is preparing to mark you as the citizen as the terrorist. If you don't believe me, friends, look at the evidence as we continue on. Let's move on. I'm going to go past all this stuff. It talks about the Department of Defense is already planning on helping state and local officials. Look at this. The Defense Department has made plans to deploy 20,000 troops nationwide by 2011. Now, how many of you, all of you, many hands were raised before about that you, saying that you had served in the American military. All right, many people. Now, for those of you who are ex-military or maybe law enforcement, anyone of you ever heard of what is called posse comitatus? You ever heard of posse comitatus? Now, most people in here who have served are a little bit older. You've served in the Vietnam conflict. In other words, you're not enlisted right now. Is this a new thing of American troops serving and patrolling on U.S. streets? Is this new? Very new, isn't it? This is something that is against the Constitution. The Posse Comitatus Act of Congress was passed in 1868, which forbids American troops acting as law enforcement. The reason why is because we as Americans do not believe in having a police state, do we? Do we believe in having a police state? No. Now let me tell you something, friends. If you think I'm joking, for the first time in U.S. history, it just happened this year. Earlier this year, for the first time in U.S. history, we have American troops, battle-hardened combat brigades that have been sent from Iraq and are deployed as I'm speaking to you on American soil that are doing police work under the direction of NORTHCOM. You're saying, what are you talking about? Friends, the American government is preparing for martial law. How many of you have been hearing about this flu pandemic scare? If you don't get the shot, you're going to be quarantined. You're going to be put in detention camps. Anybody been hearing about this kind of stuff? That's called martial law. I'm going to be sharing with you evidence tonight how the American government has already been constructing prison camps for you and I. This nation is completely different than the America that I love. Let's continue on. I'll go past Barack Obama. Notice what this says right here. This is, again, a chart speaking about the money creation, the money evolution. This is coming actually from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. Here it is, the money evolution. Notice this right here. Since 2008 and 2009, the money creation shoots off the chart. You see that? Trillions of dollars are printed out of nowhere. Now let me show you something. Government money creation will send the dollar under even more. Prepare for dollar collapse, warns ex-Bank of England policymaker. People around the world are saying, "Be careful, America, we know about it. You don't, but we do. The dollar is about to collapse. The economy is about to crash." Notice this right here, Monday, August 3rd, 2009. Just last month, an article came out on GeorgeWashingtonBlogspot.com. Double dip still in the cards. In May, CNBC wrote that we are in danger of a double dip recession. Hasn't that risk passed? No. According to a lot of top economists and financial analysts, the risk is still very real. Now, here are the people. I went today, by the way, just to verify what I'm telling you is true. I went to all these different links, and if you want the links, I can give them to you afterwards. And I went to each one, and I actually read these ones right here, and read for myself, most of all these, the experts saying that we are in danger and on the verge of a double dip recession. I'll explain what that is in a minute. Alan Greenspan, Timothy Geithner, they say it, Nouriel Roubini, Martin Feldstein, professor of economics at Harvard University, the chief economist for MarketWatch, the distinguished scholar of economics at Dowling College, Erwin Kellner, many others. They are comparing this current situation to the Great Depression, and they're looking at demographic trends and a crash in commercial real estate that argue for another crash in our stock market. These are what the experts are saying is down the line. Now, you might be wondering what I'm talking about. Look up here on the graph, and I want to notice what this is. This is actually a graph that comes from the crash of 1929. Here you have on the bottom, 1929, going down through 1933. Now here is the stock market crash in 1929. Does everyone see this okay? Here you have the initial crash. Boom. Drops, bottoms out right here. Black Thursday, stock market. But I want you to notice something here. After the crash, the initial crash of 1929, you had a 60% rebound in the stock market. Anyone see what's that? Does everyone see that? Now notice the 60% rebound, if you look at the dates, the months down here, it happened over about 6 months or so, 6-8 months. So it crashed, and then over the next 6 to 8 months, the stock market regained 60%. Now does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar, friends? Then notice that after about 6 months, another crash took place that went all the way down and bottomed out and stayed down there for the next 7 years to 1939. The reason why was because credit was still unavailable. Anybody hearing about this issue about credit still being unavailable? Credit markets are still frozen. Banks are still having problems. And yet, we're supposedly out of the recession. Friends, no, we're not. I guarantee you that we are on the verge of another crash.